Good morning, Judy from Thistledew Creations here. This is a continuation of a Sunday morning video. We just did this napkin covered music paper envelope pouch, and we did a little question to see if you liked the butterfly or the dragonfly or the button, and I picked the dragonfly. This is how it turned out. I haven't done anything else to it since the end of the last video. In fact, it's still damp. I'm continuing right along because hubby's out mowing the grass and I want to keep working while he's out there. So this is the one we just did. And the next two are a little bit different vibe. They've got this beautiful watercolor kind of floral design, and it was like a border along the edge of the napkin. You can see the rest of the napkin was just white, and it's up at the top here. And so what I did with these is I figured out, sort of started an envelope. These are pretty much the same. We may be able to do these in tandem. I've got some coordinating paper and fabric picked out. You can see I've got this one folded way up, and this one folded less far up, I guess you would say. I'm going to start by just trimming off this excess napkin, kind of flush with the paper edge. Cradle Song, that might be a good bridal gift envelope. It's by Brahms, so it must be like a lullaby. Okay, so I think I'm only going to focus on one at a time. So I'm going to do this sort of as a pouch style. Again, the Cradle Song can be like a surprise when you open it up, right? Because I can't really leave that on the front unless I make this tuck in. I haven't done one like that, but I could do that. I could figure out a way to make this flap tuck in. Or I could just simply fold it over to create a little stiffness in the back edge and make this an open envelope. Maybe that's what I'll do. I haven't done that before. Okay, so I'll do that. And I think I'm going to cut this bottom blank part off because I do save these little copyright words quite often. I'm not going to cut it off, I'm going to tear it off. So I'm going to go like this. It's easier if you have the wider part to tear, to hold on to while you tear, rather than trying to grab that little piece and tear it off. It's a lot easier. And so I'll just take my glue stick and glue this down. And that's going to firm up the top edge of the back of the pouch. And I'm going to try something else that I saw in a post on Facebook this morning. And that was, they used colored ink to distress with. And it was really pretty. And I don't think I'd use it all the time, but because this has so many pretty colors in it, I'm going to see if I have an ink that's close enough to one of these pinks. So I have this very pink one. That one might work. Or this one might work. It's more of a corally between a pink and a red. I'm just going to swatch them on a piece of white. This is a piece of paper that I glued on in the last video. I'm going to swatch them on here. That one was pretty good. That one's a bit darker. And that one's a bit too pink. That's too bubblegum. But this one could work and this one could work. I think I'm going to use this one just because when I look at it, it looks like the right color to me. I mean, obviously this tells the tale, but I am going to do some inking with that color. So I do have brushes, and I can go back and do some brushing, but I just want to do the edges with this. And it helps if you hold close to where you're inking. It doesn't move on you so much. And if I do down the sides, I do like the look of that, but I might want to add some shape. So because this is, again, dainty and pretty, I'm going to use these scissors that are from Fiskars. They're paper edgers, and it's called Majestic Long. And it shows the shape on the edge of the scissors. And these are a larger size. Some of them are quite small. Like these ones that I use all the time are smaller ones. Anyway, just to show you what I'm using. So I'm going to go right up the side. And I always try to line it back up. See, the pattern repeats. So you line it back up before you take your next cut. And that way you get the pattern continuing properly. You can't just cut it and like just keep squeezing. You have to line it up, or else you'll get this won't be a nice uniform pattern. I'm going to do the same on the other side, just going in the opposite direction. Hopefully that won't matter. And I'm just cutting a very small amount off. So see, I'm lining up that big curve right there in that spot where it belongs in the pattern before I make my next cut. If you just moved your scissors up like 1/4 of an inch and cut again, you wouldn't get that continuous pattern. Okay, so inks off to the side, out of the way. And let's see what else I want to do. I want to do a very small swoop here. I don't want to lose the words cradle song, but I'll use this again because this is too wide for me to just use a circle punch or something. I want a nice swoop. So I'm gonna use my bottom of the tray from my postage scale. And I have this because I also sell on Etsy, so I need to weigh things. And I'm just gonna very lightly draw myself that arc. And on the last one, I did this with the fancy scissors, but I think I'm just gonna cut it straight this time with the regular scissors. And I won't worry about removing my pencil line because I'm going to ink it. I'll just try to keep it nice and smooth. I've become better at this as the more I do it, doing circles and curves. And then I'm going to take the ink and go all the way along that top edge. And here I really do think I will bring the blending brush and do a little more inking. And I might even do a little bit of tea dye over top just to see if it, I'll do it over here first just to see if it gives it more of the tone I'm after. Yeah, it peaches it up a little bit, adds some yellow to it. So I think I'm going to do that too. I might go back over it again with more of the pink because it's almost taking it away here. So I'm going to do this, just sort of flat with the dauber. And then I'm going to go back in with this again. You know that saying, everything will be all right in the end. If it's not okay, it's not the end. Well, that kind of applies here. Just when you think you've messed it up, just keep going and you'll get it. So that's good, but I think I can do better with the blending brush. So let me grab the one that I use for pinks. I got these ones on Temu. I've been looking and looking to try to find them in the dollar store locally. And I saw them one time and then I haven't found them again. So with these, you got to be careful because that first time you step down, you're going to get a blotch. So you start out on the paper and then work your way in and just do kind of little circles. But if you don't want it to be blotchy, just start out on the paper and then circle in. See that blotch? You don't want it. It's like a fingerprint mark with these ones. You don't want that. Well, I don't want that. Maybe you do. So if you don't want that, start on the paper and circle in towards the edge. You might just have to hold the edge down, like here it wants to curl up. Be prepared to get ink on your fingernails. So that's coloring nicely now. I really am liking the look of that. And the vintage photo combined with the true bright color from the dollar store is working out well. And that's a good tip if you have less expensive things or just things that are too bright for the project you're doing. Try blending it with some vintage photo to grunge it up a bit. So now that's going to look good against the music paper, but my plan was to include something else in behind it. And I was going to do this floral, I'll show you in a second, but then I just spotted this sitting here and that might work too. I don't want to cover all of the music, or do I? I don't think I do. By the grace of the Lord, thou wilt wake in the morn. I'm not really much into religious stuff. Do I want it like that? Covered up completely? That'll really stiffen up the back as well. It's not meant to be a super sturdy pouch. It's just to hold some ephemera usually. And I could also put this just in behind that way. But that's not showing very much color. I could pick a spot where it does, I guess, like there. But that almost fights with these flowers. So maybe I'll save that for a different project. And just insert this sort of as an accent strip and leave that music showing. And put lace across the top there and maybe lace down at the bottom. Gotta have some lace. It's funny because I never used to have some lace, but these days I do. And so I'm just gonna mark with a pencil the position of these. And this, I just want to ink the edge in case it's a little white. I'm going to leave it straight, I think. Maybe what I'll do actually is ripple it. Just take a sliver off with the ripple scissors. These almost just look like a torn edge. Not a pattern per se, just looks like it's been torn. It's just hard to tear that small of an amount off. And this is the only little piece of this brown paper that I have. And it could just as easily be more of the green if it was the right tone. I think that's a bit dark. That's a bit bluey. It needs to be more mossy if I was going to use green. The brown works, even though there's not a lot of brown in there, is a little bit. And then if I ink it with the brown in the mix. And I think I do want it to go all the way across so that when you look in the pouch, you see that all the way across. So I'm going to come over to about here with my scissors. I'll just go ahead and do the whole thing so we don't have to be so precise. And again, ink that up. I might use the darker ink because not that I really care whether I see the ink, but I want to make sure that I get those white spots covered really well. And it is giving me a little bit of an inked edge. Even though it's already brown paper, you can see that it's been inked. I like that. Going to do the whole thing. So I might save this little scrap to put onto a tag or something and store it right in this envelope so that it'll go as part of the gift when I gift it. So those are my marks there and there, just below those little arrow shapes. So I'll bring it up to those. And actually I'm going to stick it just so that it's just sticking out the top. I think that would look good on this. Look a little more intentional, I guess I would say. Yeah, I like that. So I'm going to cut it so that it doesn't show out the edges. So there. And there. And then I'm going to use glue stick to give it an all over good gluing. Oops. It's the easiest way. Well, this isn't, I'm not trying to get it inside an envelope this time. I'm doing it before I stick it down, which is smart. See how that is. Just to go up just a touch. While I still can. And over just a touch. Might be too late. There we go. You have a little bit of time, not a lot of time. That'll work. Yeah, perfect. I'm just going to trim that just a bit more. I might have to go back and re-ink, but I think it needs... Okay. And then I think that's all I need to do before I glue it down. So I'm going to go ahead and do that part, get that drying. So you always glue on the flap that's shortest so that you don't glue too far. And here I'm just going to kind of follow the curves a little bit because they're so big. I don't want them curling up. You go almost to the top because it will squeeze up when you do this. You want to make sure you keep them lined up, your edges, I mean. And when you push up, that glue is going to push up. So just a tiny little bit came out on that side. And a tiny bit on that side. So you could also wait until you've glued down to cut your edges with the scissors, because see how it's hard to get both of them to line up perfectly? You could get one, but then the other might be off slightly. But if you glue first, then you're cutting once, and then you won't get this double. You can just barely see, but there's a double line there. I can barely see it, and I'm right here with it. So I do want to do these edges with the same ink that I did around the outside. And I'm going to do that before I add any lace. So I'll just put this piece of paper under here again. I'm going to do front and back. And I'm going to do the top edge and the bottom. Well, the bottom edge, I'm pretty sure I'm putting lace. I've got this. What else have I got? The usual cotton lace, of course. Bring my lace bin right down here. The usual cotton laces. I've got this one with pearls, but I don't have a lot of it. But I could always do different lace top and bottom. I don't want white lace. I've got this beautiful lace, but it's too big. And then this one might be a contender, but it's darker. I think this one's too big too. Something firm would be good. And this one is firm. It's yeah, the gold part of it is very stiff. Not very stiff, but it's stiffer than just normal lace. If I'm going to do that, I don't really need to ink the bottom edge, unless I'm going to put it like underneath. I could do it just sort of to decorate the back a little bit and have it sticking out. So have it like this, but then there's not much of it that can stick out. Before you see that gold. Let me see here. Actually, that would look good. That little bit of gold strip showing. And then the back would be pretty too. I think I'll do that and keep it kind of simple. I wouldn't want these pearls on the back in case someone wanted to glue it down. And with the pearls, I'm losing the bottom edge, which I'd like to ink. Mostly because I just saw that idea and want to try it. I don't usually get so hung up on an idea like that, but I'm just eager to try it. That's a pet peeve of mine, when people say they're anxious when they're really excited in a positive way. Anxious to me has a negative connotation, especially these days. So many people say they have anxiety. I don't think they think that's a good thing. And then along this edge, I'm just kind of doing this flat, not the way I would normally ink. Just to give it a brown base for that pink to go over top. And this is the vintage photo, not the ground espresso. And then on the back side, same thing. I'm not sure how much is going to show. I think all these edges are going to show, the sides. So just darkening it up a little bit so that when I put that pink on, it's not so bright. And that's getting the edge pretty good too. Hope you enjoy me crafting on the fly. I had these papers set aside and so far I haven't used them. Quite often I'll do that. I'll say, okay, I want to do a video tomorrow and I want to use this. So I'll pull out some coordinating materials to use. And I don't really have a plan in my head. I just have something that coordinates. Well, so far I only used the brown. I picked out all these corals to go with it and I haven't used them yet. So that's just how I roll. I start out with an inkling of a plan and then completely change my mind once I'm doing it. Now I'm going to do with the ink pad right along the edge, gives you a nice dark imprint of that color. And then when you go back with the blender, it gives you a softer blended look. And it's easy to manipulate these little tiny ink pads this way. I quite enjoy using them this way. These ones with the clear covers, little square ones, were from the Dollarama. They came in a little kit with 3 or 4, I think it was 3 colors of ink and clear silicone stamps that were meant to be layered. So you would do, one of them was a bird cage and then a bouquet of flowers and then the bird, I think, something like that. And then another one was a rose and you did the base of the rose and then you did the sort of the middle flower petals and then the center. So you could use the 3 different colors of ink to make it like 3-dimensional. It was a really neat kit. If I get to do some stamping soon, I will do a little video on that because it's really fun. Now, it would make it easier if I had a stamping setup, like one of those folders, which I do not have. So I had some that didn't turn out quite right because I didn't get the stamps lined up very well. But if you did have one of those stamping things, it would be easier. So So maybe I'll get one of those and then do the video so that I don't have a bunch of flops. I don't want to show you how not to do it so much as how to do it. How not to do it's once in a while when I'm figuring things out, but I'm not gonna cover that up just yet. I want to do this. So I'm going over that vintage photo with the pink. And see, I did that blob thing there, but I reacted quick enough and I was able to blend it away. Some inks dry quicker than others, so you have to be careful. I'm not doing as much up at the top here. I want it more down the sides. I'm going to glue that down after I'm done inking. I don't want it to be wet right now. That's the thing with the napkin. Sometimes you get little bits that don't glue down on the edge, especially if you start cutting away some of it. Oh, this is really turning out pretty. Because I'm going to have the lace sticking out, I want this bottom edge showing a little bit more pink. Yeah, I've never really used the colors for edging, hardly at all. I always just use the browns, and I've used some blacks and grays before. But today I saw, I think it was on one of the ATC sites, or it might have just been someone posting some tags they made, and they had done dark green edging, inking. And I thought, oh, that looks good. So I thought I would try it now, and am I ever happy that I did? I really like the way that it looks. So let me know what you think of that concept. And then here we decided this was going to go in underneath with the gold sticking out at the bottom for a little bit of a gold detail, and I might do that at the top as well. And then on the back side it'll also be pretty, so if you're just clipping it into your journal, the back side can have like another floral sticker collage or something on the back, or just a collage. It doesn't have to be a sticker collage. So I'm going to cut this. How am I going to do this? I think I want to do the edge of this to marry up with that last hump there. And then I'll just trim it with my teeny little scissors to the shape that it's supposed to be. I gotta just be careful. I want to see about half of that, I think, of the gold. So that determines where I cut. And let's glue the envelope right at the edge. So now it didn't really need to be inked on this side, but I wasn't sure of that when I started. If I was going to do another one of these right away, I would know that and I just wouldn't do it. But the fact is I would rarely ever do two of these in a row unless I was mass making for a swap or something. I like to do one thing and then move on and do something else. I'm kind of a sampler. I've always been that way, even when I made jewelry. I could never make, well, I did end up making like a dozen of the same pair of earring, but a dozen different colors. If I worked out a design that I really liked and knew would sell, then I would do that. So I'm going to let that dry before I try to trim this. So I'll go in with the teeny little scissors and trim a shape so that that flows with the design of the edge. Same thing over here. I'll clip that little bit out and then maybe do a little return corner there. But see how I've left a good 1/8 of an inch, I would say. Let me measure it here. Yeah, it's almost half a centimeter, not quite. The gold part. It's like 4 centimeters or 4 millimeters, or this doesn't show quarters. It's just under a quarter, maybe 3/16. No, yeah, 3/16. And it's just a little wider at this end, so I'm gonna tuck that in just a bit. And then I'll do the top edge the same way. Keep this. See, what I might do is just, if I don't get around to making a tag today with this, I'll stick it in here. Because if I just put it back in my scraps, it'll be gone forever. I won't be able to find it when I go to use this envelope. But if I have time today, I could do a quick little collage on a tag. I've got some pre-made tags that I could do. So see, now this makes the back of the envelope pretty too, or the pouch. So I'm going very close to the edge and a very small bead, because this stuff does grab. It doesn't need gobs of glue. Kind of guesstimating from this side and just trying to have it straight. And then turn it over and make sure you've got the amount showing that you want before it sets up. There. And then down the sides is fancy enough without having anything else done to it. And I don't think it needs anything else. I mean, you could do a little cluster up in the corner. I got some clusters mailed to me in a swap the other day. Let's just see if any of these, they're smallish. I think they're too big, even though they're smallish. But I could custom make something. I could use that one if I took the domino off. It doesn't quite jive with the project. But I don't think I'm going to use those. When I go to gift it, if there's a certain theme to what I'm putting inside, I might incorporate something on the outside to go with it. It doesn't really need it. And then, like I say, you can decorate the back maybe just with one big floral sticker or something. Like you could do a butterfly or something like that too, something larger, or a collage of butterflies and flowers or something in these same colors I would generally do. So I don't have anything handy, but let me just grab my teeny tiny little scissors. I think both of my little scissors are over at my hammock, because I was doing some fussy cutting last night, as well as trimming some seams off of some lace, which I needed tiny little scissors to grab the stitches. I didn't have my what do you call it? What are those things you use in sewing to get? I'm just gonna go like this. Yeah, just to continue that. Oh, why can't I think of that word? Because I'm concentrating on something else. Seam rippers. I got this blouse that was like layers of fabric and chiffon and lace, and it was ruffles, and it was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. That's why I bought it. But it just felt too frou-frou when I wore it. Just made me feel like too fancy, and I'm a little bit heavy, so it made me feel heavier because it was adding volume. So I decided to just cut it up, and I took the black lace off. And here's one before and after. So it has this beautiful black lace on it, but it was sewn onto another piece, so I've got these seams that have to come off. So I was trying to find the tiny little seams, and it was all black, and it was late at night and it was dark in the room, so I didn't get it all done. But yeah, that's the kind of things I do when I'm in front of the television. Always doing something like that to prep for something else that I want to do. So I'm really happy with that, the way that it blends in there. You see that? You just kind of make up a curve that'll look like a nice continuation and cut it. Need little scissors for that. I use big scissors for a lot of my fussy cutting. I only use the scissors for really tiny stuff. I find that I have better control with the large scissors and don't have to reset my grip as often. There, so that one's done. And 35 minutes, not bad. Maybe what I'll do is take a few minutes and use this little scrap. I just noticed a tag sticking out here that has some reddish ink on it already. So I'm gonna just go over that with Vintage Photo pretty aggressively. And this is just a tag that was a pre-made tag. You can see it was a white tag. And I did a strip collage on it with little strips of paper that had torn off of the edges of music paper and some book page and some music paper strips, and just did that. And then I'll use the ground espresso around the edges so that it's a little darker. And I'm gonna go over the edges with pink too. See how much darker that ground espresso is? It's almost like a black brown. I like that color. I'm gonna do that because then I'm gonna go and do Vintage Photo all through the middle here, just to make it not so white. So in order to see the edges, I want to make them darker. Vintage Photo, just a nice swirling. So if you have paper that's white and you don't really want white and you don't want a coffee dye, you can do this. Takes a bit of ink, but I haven't done any tags really in my coffee dyeing sessions. If I were to maybe go on Amazon and buy a pack of 100, I probably would do some, but I just had a few of them. Get that less white up at the top as well. And then I'm going to go in with this, and I don't want to use my ink pad directly up against that freshly inked edge. I'm just going to do this. I think this is going to be perfect. A few little bits I need to glue down. Probably did this with glue stick, the collaging. It seems to work so well when you're doing it, but you do have to watch that your edges don't lift. And it depends on the humidity and so forth too. I find when my glue stick is nice and gloopy, I find it sticks better because I get more glue onto the page and it absorbs part way into each piece of paper, and then it works better. So that's transformed. I'm just going to do it a little bit on the back too, so it flows with the theme. And like I say, I'll keep this tag with this envelope, and then whenever I'm giving something in this envelope, I will include this as a little extra. I won't put this tag in with my other tags or it'll get lost or given away somewhere else, and I want it to go with this pouch. I hope that Dollarama brings these out again, these little stamp kits. Seems like they have something cool like that and then they don't have it anymore. It goes away. I like the way that's lighter in the center and then the darkness and then the pinkness. I'm really kind of getting into the ink blending No reason the back can't be pretty too. Okay, so then this brown strip, how am I going to use that? Well, I want to combine it with something like this, because this is the right tone of green, as you can see, and some of this. So let's take my ripple scissors and cut myself a little rectangle of this stuff and ink those other edges. And I think what I'm going to do here, let me think here. I'll do 3 things, makes a nice little cluster. Oops, wrong scissors. My zigzag scissors. And that is a different size. You see that is the original factory zigzag. I'm going to cut that off. I'll use that in a cluster somewhere. And start with a little square that's all cut with the same scissors and inked with ground espresso. And some people would say, inking fabric? Darn right, I'm inking fabric. So that, I'm doing it down in the bottom here because the inking is up here. And I'm just going to put a little snippet of this lace so it coordinates with the journal, and I'm going to diagonally cut it with the zigzag scissors. So it's got a couple of things going on there. And then stagger everything nicely. That kind of covers the seam. I don't know if I really need to do that. Maybe more like this. Or this one down in the corner and this one up. I'm running out of time here for my going to a meeting this afternoon. I think I'll do that, and then I'm going to try to find an embellishment to put on the green. I'm going to make that kind of right down in the bottom corner, kind of equally spaced from the side and the bottom. And then the green will be up a little bit further, so they're not lined up at the bottom edge. Like that. And then the lace, I'm just wondering if I've got that kind of the right size. I'm going to go with it. And that doesn't get any ink. It's already the right tone. Kind of an antique tan. And then, let's see if I can find that little bag of charms. And find one of my smaller dragonflies. I won't have my really tiny ones in here, but that one will work. I'm just going to nip that loop off. So I've got my jewellery plier. They're just like side cutters, but they're small. I'm just going to cut the loop right off. These ones don't want to open up for me. And it goes flying. And then it's kind of sharp. So I take an emery board until it doesn't feel sharp anymore. Even though it's not really going to be handled by anyone, I wouldn't want it to cut any paper that it runs across or anyone's finger. So that smooths it right out. This one's a double-sided dragonfly, but it can stick down with the 3-in-1 glue. So get it on its wings. And right in the middle, kind of. So that is a nice little coordinating card to go with this pouch. And then I would just need to put something in the top for topper. Maybe I do have some gold sort of organza ribbon. Maybe I'll use that. It's a bit wide, but I think if I do kind of a short little, I'm gonna cut myself a fair bit off, but I might not use it all. I'm getting quite gluey here. So I'm gonna fold this in half. Nice angled ends already cut on it. And then to get it through the hole, I'm gonna fold it in half again this way, so I can poke it through the hole. And then once it's through the hole, I can unfold it, put my finger through that loop, put the ends through the loop. And then that loop, you just want to get it so it's situated nice. It's going to show in the front as I'm going to have the gold folding up, so you can see 2 stripes of gold there. And then that's not too long. It's about right. Don't even need to trim that one. You could trim it a little shorter, but I like that length. I think that's a good proportion for this card because it's sort of short but wide, and then it's a little bit heavy down at this bottom edge with all these darker colors. I really like this through the middle. And you could put a little flower if you found one that would show up, but just because this is the color of these flowers, it really wouldn't. You'd have to put a piece of fern or something. So if I had a fern sticker, I might put it there. If I come across one, I'll try to remember that. But yeah, that's a cute little set. I really enjoyed that one. It was totally unexpected because, like I said, I had all these other things picked out to go with that napkin and didn't even use them. But that's just the way it happens sometimes for me when I'm crafting. I don't plan everything out in minute detail, and it works out just fine. See, that could go there too with a little bit of fabric behind it. Oh Lord, where's that offcut? I don't want to cover up the 12 necessarily. No, I'll leave it as it is. But you could do something like that up in the corner. So I hope you've enjoyed watching. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Most of all, have a fabulous day. See you in the next video.